Hey, everybody, welcome to the Great Lakes Fishing Podcast. Today, we're going live once again on Facebook, and we've got Pat Kalmerton on the show with us today. Pat Kalmerton is a charter captain on Lake Michigan, and I'm going to let him tell kind of the rest of the story as far as what he does, where he's located, and what he's all about. Pat, first of all, welcome to the show, and we really appreciate you coming on live here with all of our audience.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Again, kind of recapping on Chris's topic, my name is Patrick Kalmerton. I'm a USCG captain out of the port of Sheboygan. It's a family-owned business, Wolfpack Adventures. We have multiple boats up out of Sheboygan, Wisconsin. We have a couple of walleye boats over on Winnebago, Green Bay. We also do a lot of fly fishing. So this time of year, we're busy. We're running and gunning for walleye fishing. We are hitting the Winnebago system. We're also up on the Bay of Green Bay. We are buffing and polishing boats as we speak to be able to splash them, to get after it. You know, we have a couple of the 21-foot boats that are fishing those skinny waters for your brown trout and occasional lake trout and stuff like that that's hanging up in there. But those steelhead are up in the rivers. We're fly fishing, spin cast fishing, float fishing, doing all that right now. And we're excited. We're excited for the season to get going. We're excited about the fishery. Things are looking up. So we're ready to go. But yeah, Wolfpack Adventures, we got a lot of different hats that we wear.
Yeah, you guys are multi-species and also multi-technique, and I know you guys do a lot of the stream fishing and the river fishing as well. Things obviously going well there. Tell us a little bit about Sheboygan and what's it like fishing Lake Michigan out of Sheboygan?
I tell you what, out of the Sheboygan port, first off, it's beautiful. You know, the old coal piles that were there back in the 80s are no longer there. It is landscaped by tall buildings, beautiful resorts, the shorelines. You have Terry Andre, that is a state park just to the south that have all the sand dunes and stuff. And then if you travel north, just north of the mouth of the Pigeon River, you have Whistling Straits up there. So it's, you know, you can go up and you can watch people golf, and it's a world-renowned golf destination, and we get to enjoy that. You know, it's about 9 miles north out of the port of Sheboygan. Which makes Sheboygan extremely unique is it offers an array of different fishing opportunities. You can fish from shoreline. We have a power plant right there that earlier in the season, it's pumping warm water, and people can get out there and brown trout and fish off of there for that warm water discharge. You also have the piers that is less than a mile away, the South Pier. People cast off of there, and they start their fishing season a little bit earlier. You have north hold great big rocks and boulders and everything else that bait fish congregate to, so it holds bait fish longer than when those bait fish start moving up from the south and they hit that first piece of structure. See, out of Sheboygan, you have sand to the south and you have rocks to the north. So it warms up faster to the south. You can get out there and you can do some fishing, but as time progresses, you can continue to follow those fish up to the north. But those bait fish, once they hit those rocks that are holding plankton and everything else and the algae that are growing on there, that's where those bait fish are going to stage. They're going to hang out in there, and it offers awesome fishing opportunity. As the season moves on, you can kind of start early, really early in the season. So like right now, we are trolling for brown trout. We're in the skinny water. When I say skinny water, I'm talking 30 foot or less. So we're real close to the shoreline. That predominant west wind that we usually get, the shoreline breaks it up, offers us really good fishing opportunities on some days that are kind of hairy out there. But we're fishing that shallow water right now, and as time moves on, once late April, May comes through, we're going to have our coho run. You know, there's some years that our coho run is a little better than others. This year, you know, they're stocking cohos out of the port of Sheboygan. So we're going to have a pretty good coho fishing destination for next few years, because those cohos are always going to return to where they were stocked. And once you start fishing cohos, that transitions right into your steelhead or your rainbow trout. And those there, you know, so we go from one extreme to the other. We're fishing extremely shallow water right away, and then a month and a half later, we're out in that 250, 350 foot of water, and we're fishing skinny water again. A lot of our fishing is done in the top 30 feet, but we're chasing those dancing rainbows and cohos and just a really active fish, which can be fast and furious at times. Really exciting. You know, if you want tail dancing and fast action, June is the time that you want to come. It's one of them where it's awesome fishing. And then you continue going through, and that water starts warming up, and a lot of the scum lines or the different temperature breaks start settling down, and that lake starts shifting a little bit. That's when we really start targeting kings. You know, I'm not saying that you can't catch a couple kings while you're out rainbow fishing. Sometimes those big kings are up there as well. When you get a, you know, 15-pound salmon or a king salmon that hits, you know, that top line, it's really fun. They take off like you're fishing skinny water again. But then, you know, as the king fishing continues, then we're targeting kind of that ledge. We call it the ledge out of Sheboygan. It goes from 80 to 150 fairly quick. And it's within a couple of miles of our port. So a lot of times you're not traveling, you know, an hour to get your fishing destination. Usually if you're looking for that ledge, you're there within 15 minutes, 20 minutes of travel time. So you're not eating up a lot of your fishing time. There again, you know, we're fishing that ledge for your kings, and cohos or your steelhead are mixed up within the top. You know, it just kind of offers an array of different species. And then as the fall transitions, we have three lakes. We have three river systems that come in: Black River, Sheboygan River, and Pigeon River. And all three of them, those fish will migrate up to spawn. So that offers some tremendous shore fishing once you get into the breakwaters again, up all the way until you hit the Kohler Dam. And then we cap off our season by fly fishing up on the rivers and spin cast fishing. And so Sheboygan, it's a destination that you don't only, if you have some people that are in your family that aren't really crazy about fishing, but they are looking for different things to do, Sheboygan is the spot to be. We have a ton of different things to do in town. We have a lot of activities. We have water parks. We have great fishing. So it's just it's a premier destination.
Very cool, Pat. For you, those of you watching, if someone's got some questions for Pat, feel free to leave them in the comments. That's the great thing about doing the live thing, is that you can ask questions and Pat will be happy to answer them. And the other thing we're going to do, which we do with all of our lives, that if you are chosen as the question of the show, we will be sending you a Fish Hawk swag package. So some hats and stickers and whatever else the guys decide to throw in a box for you. So if you want some free Fish Hawk swag, start throwing some good questions into the comments and we'll get those to Pat. But we're in April right now, Pat. You guys are doing that brown trout fishing. Tell us a little bit about the details of that, how you guys go about targeting browns early in the year out in your neck of the woods.
Early in the year like this, a lot of times you don't need all the fancy equipment. You know, a lot of it is going to be straight line, so no lead core, no nothing. We run a lot of mag lips. We run a lot of stinger spoons. We use a lot of flutter spoons. You know, a lot of thunder sticks, deep diving, shallow diving. You know, there's number 3 J plugs. A lot of times what you're going to do there is you're gonna go back old school. Before the fish hawk was around, where you're throwing that lure over the side of the boat, you're gonna look at it and you're gonna go. You want to wobble flip on the spoons. You want to tune those plugs and those cranks that they're running true. They're actually diving the way that you want to and not skipping to the side. We do a lot of slide divers. And when I talk about using a lot of this stuff, earlier I mentioned that we were 30 foot or less. And the reason being is they're looking for that warmer water. When that sun this time of year starts hitting that shoreline, hitting that sand, hitting those big rocks, it starts warming up, and those browns will get in there and they'll look for bait fish. And you're running anywhere from 2.3 to 2.5. You're covering some ground. A lot of it, we're running the planer boards, offshore planer boards, and we're making sure that we're getting it out away from the boat. A lot of people will use the kickers to minimize the noise just because of being so shallow. A lot of bright colors, a lot of oranges, a lot of greens, a lot of. I mean, it's brown fishing, and once you start getting into it, you're gonna find a pattern that works for you. And there's a lot of people out of Sheboygan. Some will go south and they'll fish off Terry Andre. Some will go north and they'll fish off the golf course. Pigeon River is not a bad spot to dump into or to stop powering and troll all the way up. And people, a lot of people this time of year, you don't have the crowds that you do during the summer months. So, travel isn't that hard. People are usually pretty respectful, get out of the way and all that other stuff. But it can be fast and furious fishing as well, and you get into some of those big browns early, in that shallow water, and it's almost like you have a big king on it. They bulldog you, those big old hook jaws, and just beautiful fish.
Yeah, it doesn't get much more beautiful than a brown trout. But I think one of the things that when people think of your neck of the woods, your part of the lake, that people really get excited about is the coho fishing. And that was really kind of what I was interested in talking to you today about, was the coho fishing. And when does that typically kind of really start picking up in the Sheboygan area?
Coho fishing is going to be May. You're looking at pretty much, they're going to start south and they're going to work their way up. So we're seeing Port Washington. Those are kind of known as the coho meccas, if you will. But Sheboygan is no slouch when it comes to coho fishing, especially this year. We have a lot of it's been warm. We've been getting some really nice warm days, and that water temperature is starting to warm up, and those cohos, they're going to start coming up. And once you start getting into cohos, again, extremely vibrant colors. You're looking at a lot of the really orange. You're looking at a lot of the bright yellows, the triplot dodgers. We're running some spinning glows behind those triplot dodgers. We're running a lot of flies. You look at those, and the old pro spoons, the little stinger spoons, the JBs. When you get to that kind of fishing, throw your great big paddle boards and your Pro Troll flashers and all that stuff to the side. Because these things, they like it fast, they like it bright, and they travel in schools. So once you find that little pod, man, beat up on it. Just keep turning on it, constant figure eights. Find out what they like. If they like fast, go fast. If they like slow, go slow. And when I say a figure eight, when you have your boards out to the side and you turn, the outside boards are going a lot faster than the inside boards because they're going to be dead in the water a little bit because of that turn, the slack in the line, the momentum kind of stops, and those fish, sometimes they like it slow, sometimes they like it fast, but there's a lot of things. Your slide diver may be set 5 feet from the side of the boat, and that thing it breaks it when it's awesome. And once you get into those schools of cohos, man, you can get it. you can get your limit really quick. And, you know, there's times where as a charter boat, it's really nice because you can get out there and you can fill. And not only that, but there isn't a better eating fish than this time of year, that cold water, that real deep red meat in them. We're excited. We're hoping they show up. They're gonna be coming, you know. And Sheboygan is a destination that I don't want to say it's hit or miss, but it can be hit or miss.
You talked a little bit about the colors. You're like an orange. It seems like that's something I hear a lot, especially you get down to Racine. Those guys all like orange for cohos too. But how are you targeting them? What are you using as far as your entire setup there to get those cohos?
Okay, so you are going to have a couple of, you know, deeper spoons. So you're going to be running those JBs, those Pro Kings, regular profile. I would say 45 foot. A lot of times we're going to be 60 foot or less, you know, early, and then continue to move out a little bit. But once you get into the cohos, you're using double-aught Dodgers and flies on 3-color. You're using a lot of slide divers. You're using a lot of stackers or a lot of sliders within your downriggers. So you're running those downriggers, and then you're running about a 5-foot lead on top of that, just by a swivel to another swivel, just to add an extra line. There's a lot of, you know, I would do, a lot of times we're not more than a 5-color lead core. You know, once you start getting up into that 7, 9-color, those are predominantly used for kings and stuff, but we're usually using that 1-color, 2-color, 3-color. If you want to run a tadpole coming off of, you know, just a flat line, you can do that. You can run little weights off of flat line if you don't have the lead core setups. We're running fish flash, man. We're those flashers that are just constantly spinning and throwing different, you know, a lot of it is looking for flash. So cohos are attracted to schools of bait fish, alewives, that when they turn, every time they flash. So there's a lot of silvers, there's a lot of, you know, things like that, where we'll run a lot of the double-aught Dodgers and the fish flash and things like that, where it just creates a lot of, almost like a disco ball down there to bring them in. And once that feeding frenzy starts, it's a goal, you know. So you can use your flat lines. We run some mag lips up there, slide divers. We use a lot of those, anywhere from 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 feet of water. You're going to figure out where that school is. There is no written rule on if they're going to be in the top 3 feet or if they're going to be down 40 feet. There is no standard. You have to do your homework. You have to look at those water temperature breaks. You know, Lake Michigan is a huge, it can vary 10 degrees at times, especially this time of year, within 5-foot distance. And that's where, you know, products like Fish Hawk comes in, where you can stay on top of them, find out where the currents are, find out what's going on, and it's going to improve your fishing tremendously. At least that's for us.
Very cool, Pat. Tell us a little bit about that. You talked earlier in the show about stocking going on in Sheboygan. I know that's a big deal in Wisconsin right now. The Wisconsin DNR has increased their stocking this year, and it's one of those things that really, in a lot of places, that's not happening. So what's kind of gone into that decision for the DNR to start putting more fish into the water?
Public opinion, you know, it's one of them where there was a lot of hearings. They listened to the people that fish. They know that brown trout fishing is a entertaining thing for a lot of the people that don't have the opportunity or the means of having the boats to be able to get out on the lake. So when they had their spring hearings, or they had a multitude of different meetings, and they listened to the public. They listened to what we were seeing for alewives. They looked at the three different years. So I think it's 2000, 2001, or 21 and 22. 2021 and 22, I think they concluded at 550,000 fish in Lake Michigan. And there's going to be a mixture. There's going to be some brown trout. There's going to be some rainbow trout. There's going to be some coho salmon, king salmon. They're reducing some of the brown trout stocking. I don't know the numbers right off the top of my head, but it's going to offer some tremendous fish in the next few years. Our alewife population is coming down. We're seeing pretty good schools of alewife still, but they say lake wide, the smelt, the alewives, all that stuff are coming down. So what their thing was it's a put-take resource. So they put it in for the sports people to take out, the men, women, children, and it's an entertainment fishing. Way back when they stocked these fish because the alewives were rolling up onto the shoreline, stinking all the towns and everything else, and they were bringing bulldozers in, scraping the beaches to clean up all the alewives that were dying off because of their lifespan is so short. Well, when they first introduced that saltwater fish into Lake Michigan, and it had the success rate that it did, and also the booming population of people that enjoyed that resource and that entertainment aspect of the fishing, that was a huge draw. So now you go through and you look at every different tourism along Lake Michigan, Lake Superior, all the way through tourism. The sports people that come to town to fish either on charter boats or personal boat is a huge, I guess that is what's making the city strive. So when the fishing is terrible, or when the fishing is tough or whatnot, everybody works so many hours nowadays to be able to support their family and put food on the table and everything else, that when you have that extra means of money, you can go to the store to buy a fish. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But if you can go and share that memory, share that experience, share that, share it, you share it with your friends, your family. Everybody always asks, why would I go charter fishing, or why would I want to go out on Lake Michigan? Because it's something that if you've never done it, you have to experience it. But we have a fishery, and the DNR now is working to maintain that fishery that they have established in the past to make the entertainment flourish, if you will.
Very cool. What about you talked a little bit about steelhead and some of those steelhead being mixed in with the coho, and that tends to be, where you get them. As the season progresses, how does that steelhead fishing change?
Oh man, I love it. Steelhead fishing, when you're out steelhead fishing and you're running your boards, and you got 4, 5, 6 boards on each side. You're running a lot of flatline, the old rattlesnakes I still like. I like mag lips. I still like the double lot dodgers on 1 to 3 color, 5 color lead core. Everything is up high. Everything is tacked down. So we're running a little hotter than normal. We're finding those different scum lines, current changes, anything of that sort. A lot of times you'll see them, which what you have is you have 2 different currents that come together at one area, or 2 different temperatures that come together at one area, and everything kind of congregates to that area, being your bugs, being your debris, your garbage, all that stuff comes together. Well, now it's easy pickings for them rainbows to come out there and pick those flies off the top, and you'll all of a sudden see a boil, or you'll see them skyrocketing. Half the time when you're fishing, and that fish comes skyrocketing out and it's tail dancing behind the boat, and your customers are like, oh, that was cool. Well, I'm not going to watch for that fish. I'm looking at my rod going, oh, where is he? He's here somewhere. Oh, there he is. All of a sudden that rod will double over and he'll take off. And that there, anytime that you get into a really good, rainbow school, and you got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lines going off at once, and it's all in the top, and it's all hectic, and people are dodging and weaving and bobbing around and making sure that the lines aren't crossed from these fish are jumping. Now you want to add into the real mix, have a salmon take off right in the middle of all that. Oh man, that first bait on the back deck and the captain is sitting there going, woohoo, here we go. So steelhead fishing is probably my favorite just because it is the most entertaining, it is the most fast paced, it is you're out away from the shoreline, you're seeing everything, you're there's times where you're out there and storms are rolling through, and as a captain, you're watching extremely close. But there's been times where it is safer to stay out 18 miles out of Lake Michigan and watch that storm go between you and the shoreline than it is to go through that storm to get back. So out on Lake Michigan, those storms pop up, and that can, some of the fishing can be really good at that time. I don't know. I'm just ready to go fishing, to be honest with you, Chris. It's one of them with your those fish. We were talking earlier. You need to come over rainbow fishing with me because we have a blast.
It actually is funny you bring up that storm thing. The last time I was on Lake Michigan, we were out of Two Rivers, and that's exactly what we did. A storm came up, and we basically went all the way around it and came back in, and that was the way the trip went. And that was pretty cool because you're out there fishing, and you can see that storm working between you and the shore, and the captain just swung it around, and we came right back in as the storm moved south. So that was a pretty neat deal when we were out there doing that. And I think one of the cool things, and this is something I want to get to, before we do that, though, we do have a question. And again, this is an audience question. And if you're watching, feel free to ask some questions. We actually encourage the questions. And what we're going to do is the question of the segment for Pat will get a free Fish Hawk swag bag with a hat and some stickers. And again, whatever else they decide to throw in the box there up at Fish Hawk headquarters. But we got a question here from Chris Bunda, and he asked, do you feel like everything will be a few weeks early this year due to warm temperatures?
Yes and no. So that's a loaded question. And the reason I say it's a loaded question is because every year we think that things are going to get going sooner than it really does, where all of a sudden you get all ramped up and you hit the deck and you start going. I think it is kind of a maintained throughout the season. That water needs to warm up. And when you're looking at 900 miles long, 60 some miles wide, there's a lot of factors into that. How much snow did we have? We didn't have, we had a lot of snow early, but not late. So then it started warming up a lot faster. I think that we didn't have the amount of rain so far this year. Now, I can't look into the future. I don't know what the rain is going to do into the future too much. Rain can delay things sometimes. I think that we're pretty much on pace, to be honest. Our brown trout right around April, you look back 10, 15 years, we were fishing the brown trout tournament mid-April. The Bailey's Harbor brown trout tournament's coming up in April. You have, the different brown trout tournaments are still on pace, and people are really starting to get going. I usually start trying to run my brown trout trips no earlier than March 31st. March 31st, I'll put the London, and we'll run some brown trout trips out there. And as time goes through, I think we're pretty much on pace. There's going to be some fish that are showing up a little bit earlier, but not so much because they're showing up earlier. I think that they're going to be showing up earlier because everybody has that spring fever. They've been cooped up, especially now coming, I don't want to say on the backside of COVID, but now that we have the opportunity to not hide so much if we're going to go outside, if you will. It's a loaded question. It'll be interesting, but I don't think it's going to be that early. I think that those fish are kind of on pace. If there are some fish that are being caught, I think that it's because we're getting out there earlier because we're sick of being cooped up, if that makes any sense. Oh, I can't hear you, Chris.
That makes total sense. I think sometimes, like you say, people, kind of create their own truth. And if you don't typically fish early, then the bite doesn't start early. But if you're out
Right.
and you catch them, then the bite starts early. I want to ask you kind of some other kind of more fun questions, but before we do that, let's talk fishing one more chunk, and that is we talk kings, and I think that's what everybody wants to hear about is kings. And how do you go about your king fishing out of Sheboygan? What does that look like? What does your program look like when you're out there king fishing?
King fishing off of our 21-foot Lund is no different than king fishing off of our 16-foot Sylvan to our 38-foot Cosmo. All functionality runs the same when it comes to king fishing. You have your downriggers across the back. Some people run 3, some people run 4, some people will run 5. Your downriggers are predominantly, in theory, from that 50 to 150. That's how you're going to target those. So you got your back set there. And off of your downriggers, a lot of times early you're going to start spoons when those bait fish are still a little bit smaller. As the summer continues and they continue to eat and those bait fish continue to grow, then we're going to start switching over. We're going to start using a lot of the pro trolls and a lot of the coyotes and some of the boards with that fly lead, and you're going to start running a lot of that. We run a lot of fish flash out there. We run a lot of maglips. We run off of our downriggers. I would say between downriggers and wire divers, and coppers, we're all over the place. So your boards, or when I say a flash or fly, I'm just going to say a flash or fly. It may be the fish flash with a spoon, kind of the same category, in my opinion, where you have that flash that looks like the school of the bait fish coming through, and then that leg of the prey fish, I should say, so that it simulates a dying alewife or something trying to catch up on. And that predator fish is always going to take the weakest. Nature runs its course no matter what it is. That prey fish is looking for an easy meal. It's going to look for something that's lagging behind the rest of the school. So I'm going to run my flasher flies. I'm going to run my fish flash with a small spoon, either be a pro spoon or a small stinger or any of that sort. So I'm not disturbing the action of that bait. I need something lighter back there that continues to have that flip, or that wobble flip action. So you're seeing all sides of that, and it's kind of creating that color. Once you get off of the back deck where you have your downriggers, and a lot of people don't run downriggers on smaller vessels. Now you got your, on the inside, right next to your downriggers are going to be your wire divers. The wire divers adds a different element. It adds some vibration into the water. You can get down as deep using Magnum, dipsy divers. You can get down there, dive real deep. And majority of the time, I would say I'm running anywhere from 85 to 150 on those. Feet on the line counter, that is. So I'm going to hit that line counter. I'm going to put them on at like a 0, about a 1.5 setting. I'm going to go down 85 to that 150. And there again, everything depends on the temperature of the water. So I'm looking for that feeding temperature that is going to create the best bang for the buck, if you will. That you're going to see it on your graph where you're going to have fish sitting between that 50 to 80 foot and 150 feet. And it's a constant thing. Well, that's because there's either a current change, a temperature change, something in that water column at that depth is what's causing that. And there again, we rely on Fish Hawk every single minute of every single day. Not only to the fact where the captains watch it, I got mates on the back deck tuning in on the app to figure out what is going on, because it may change in a half mile. Let's say we're going and all of a sudden the bite dies and we haven't had a bite in 10, 15 minutes. Something changed. Those fish aren't just right there. There's a reason that they're hanging there. Either there's a break in the current, there's a temperature, whatever the case may be. But we're going to spin around on that break again, and we're going to hit that area because they're all congregating there. Maybe that's where the school of fish is, but that school of bait fish is sitting in that area for a reason. So going back, I'm sorry, I get sidetracked. So you got your wire divers, and then you got your dipsy divers or your slide divers on top of that. If you're running, I'm just going to go 2 on a side. Some people do 3, but I'm going to do my wire divers on the inside. Then I'm going to go my bigger rods, I should say. My outside rods are going to be longer than my inside. And I'm going to run those. Now on my top ones, I'm going to be running spoons. So on those wires, going back to before, a lot of times I'm going to have that flasher fly. I'm going to have that fish flash with the spoon behind it. I'm going to have something that dives. So like a mag lip is going to dive, or let's say the 30 track Rapala, going back to old school, that's going to dive. So that's where those are. My next rods up are going to have probably, all depends on what your skill level is. Sometimes if you're set at a 4.5 on the bottom of that diver, you want the inside at 1.5, the outside a little higher, so it skips out to the side more instead of diving down. And that outside one in 101 with the Mountain Dew Flash has been, that's always going to be on that outside rod. It's just one of them things where I have confidence in that bait on that rod at that depth. So I'm going to run that. I have rods I can play with. But one of them rods is always going to have a green hollow, and one's going to have a Mountain Dew hollow. Enticer blade, double fin on the backside, and that is what's going to be on my outside divers. Then when you go up, depending on the season again, you're going to start earlier. The top of that water column is going to warm up faster. As the summer continues to go, they're going to slide down. So at first, when I'm going to be running that 3-color, 5-color, 7-color lead cores up on top. That's where I'm going to concentrate on there. If I start seeing a lot more fish going deep, then I'm going to bring out my 200, my 300 coppers. I'm going to run a lot of 10-color lead cores. I'm going to run lead core with tadpoles. I'm going to, and that there, I can't tell you what I'm going to do, because every day on Lake Michigan is different. Every time I get to that lighthouse and I look at that lake, and again, you got 900 miles long by 60 miles wide. Where do you start today? Those fish move. And the way that you can start that is by going, okay, I'm going to start back where I started yesterday. Where I finished yesterday and those fish were active, that's where I'm going to start. But with that current, do you have a half-mile current, a 1-mile current down 50, 70 foot where those fish are moving? Is that current going to take them away? Are they going to go with the current? Are they going to go into the current? Where are they going to go? And that's why I agreed to come to this, is because a lot of people, they'll throw a bait over. So you're spending all this money on, here's my deal on the whole thing. You're spending all the money on all the equipment, your time invested, the equipment alone is not cheap. So when you go out there and you're looking at, spending how much money per bait, how much money per flasher, how much money per rod, now all of a sudden you start running the coppers and everything else. But you have one application in the fish hawk, one application that will tell you everything that you need to know by the temperature, by the depth, by the the temperature, the speed, everything of that, which people that do it every single day rely on relentlessly, because it will put and produce more fish in the boat, not only for myself, but clients. There's not a person on that boat wants more fish in that boat than the captain. I can promise you. No matter what you're paying for a charter, that captain, that mate, they want to fish 10 times more than you do, because it's a reputation on the line. This is what they do. It's like a carpenter saying he can't hammer a nail. That just, it doesn't work. It's just not there. So when it comes to salmon fishing, early in the season, we're fishing up a little bit higher. Later in the season, we're down deeper. If that lake flips, which Lake Michigan does flip a couple times a year, then you start all over again. You're trying to learn how to swing the bat, if you will. You know, you have to, gosh, Michigan, she's just cruel sometimes, but she's very awesome other times.
Pat, one of the big reasons I wanted to have you on is because your personality, and you've let it peek out a few times in this interview, but here's where I want to give you a chance to kind of tell your favorite story. You know, if I was going to give you a few minutes to do a stand-up routine on kind of your favorite moment out fishing Lake Michigan, what's kind of one of your favorite stories from being out on the water, whether it's with clients or just kind of a fun type of trip? What's a story that somebody says, "Hey, tell me about a good time you had in the lake"? What are you going to share?
Chris, that's not very nice. I mean, you know how many years I've been doing this? Oh, man. Favorite time on Lake Michigan. There's no one time that you can really pinpoint, you know, quite honestly. There's that time way back when I was still 18 years old, bought my first Thompson with the dog house. We were up fishing brown trout, and I looked over, and, you know, I've been doing it since I've been really, really little. But I had some friends on the boat that when they looked down, that water was so clear, and I was pointing out the rocks up to the north. They're great big rocks, you know, and it looks like they're 3 feet under the boat, where really they're 15 feet down. And I was like, look at that boulder. And that's an ongoing joke of, oh, every time we pass a rock, oh, look at that boulder, you know, just jerks. You know, you got that one. You got the why I do what I do yet is that person that is, for example, there was a 90-year-old man, and he caught a 4-pound rainbow trout. And I looked at it, I was like, okay, well, you know, that's a trophy to that man, but it wasn't to me because of what I do every single day. And I'm looking, my expectation of a trophy is a lot higher than this individual's. And I mean, he started crying, and it was the biggest fish of his life. And they talked about that fish at that man's funeral several years later. And, you know, the family sent me a picture of, you know, at the funeral where he's holding that fish, and that grin was from ear to ear. That there will always stick out in my mind as I helped ease that moment at one of the saddest times of that family's life, you know, and that was very special to me. Another very special time to me was when my kids, you know, I have it in my office here somewhere. I don't even know where, to be honest. I'm terrible, but, you know, I got my 2 older kids holding a rainbow trout, and my baby little girl that fishes with me everywhere in the country right now with these stupid little glasses on, and she's trying to touch a fish. That I can tell you exactly where I was that day out on the way. I can tell you exactly what it bit. I have, you know, I met my wife out on Lake Michigan. She was a client. I know, my bad. I'm guilty. I'm guilty. She was a client. So, you know, I met her out there. That body of water will offer as many or memories than you will ever, you know, you remember the fire drills. You remember the time that you had nine fish on at once, and all 9 were legitimate fish in all different areas going all crazy. I remember that. I remember the sunrises coming up and the sunsets and the wind and the storms. And, you know, there's not really, you get excited when that rod buckles and just starts screaming before you see it. You get excited when the client is excited. I personally, that is what fishing is for me. It's that excitement level. We're an entertainment business. You know, if you kid yourself and tell everybody or try to promote yourself as a fishing business along with the other how many hundreds of charter boats or captains or anything else that are on that lake, I have to step back once in a while and not only tell myself, but also tell the family that I work with, you know, being my captains, my mates, everybody else, that we're in this for entertainment. We are in this. Anybody can go to the store to buy a fish. That's not what we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on equipment and on merchandise and everything else. It is much bigger than that. A fish is a very small part of the equation that we're really trying to get the answer to. And I hope I never get the answer. I honestly hope I never get that answer that I'm looking for or I'm not looking for to complete this cycle, because I'm excited doing every different species we talk about. I'm excited about all the new technology that's coming out. I am going to be 100% honest with you. My captains and my mates and the people that I am a team member with, a family member with, that run those boats every single day, that are younger than me and do their research and go through all the ifs, ands, or buts of the new technology and the different stuff that's coming up. They show us now. They show us the new stuff, and I still find myself going back to my 30 tracks, or I run J plugs every single trip, or I remember that time where, you know, a staple back in the 90s when I was running 100-foot back on I'm not talking line counters, I'm talking, you know, I'm actually counting how many level winds on a regular reel am I going back before I set it on the downrigger, 55 down on the red nose J plug. The silver J plug had rattles in it with the red nose. That fish took a fish every single trip between 9 o'clock and noon. Every single day that thing was going to go. And why did it go? Because I had the confidence in it. Or maybe because that J plug is less forgiving than the currents and the temperatures and everything else that now we have the capabilities of looking at through the different technology that's out there. This whole, you know, years ago, before the quagga mussels and the zebra mussels and everything else, we were digging those 30 tracks in the mud and bouncing our balls on the bottom with the flash on there, red evil eyes. We were running evil eyes on the bottom and real close to the ball, and we wouldn't have them going up the bottom. So the memories on Lake Michigan is something that can never be taken away from me. And I hope that never stop. But to pinpoint one, I can't, obviously. I rattle on. Sorry.
No, that was great. And I really appreciate, Pat, all the time you spent with us. We're going on to over 45 minutes now. I got one more question for you, and hopefully it's not, maybe it's the hardest question, maybe it'll be the easiest one, but one of the things that you keep saying is, you know, back then, back here, remember this. You've been out on the lake for a long time. Tell us a little bit of just how the lake has changed. What is it like? What are some of the things that you can really come to mind and say, it's this now and it was that then? What has changed, and what's different now than what it was when you got started?
Clarity. I think that the clarity has a tremendous amount of it. We are back when I started, you know, back in, what was it, 90, 91, 92, when I started running for charter boats as a first mate. Clarity really wasn't an issue. You know, we were running our dipsy divers. We were running our downriggers. We didn't have lead core. We didn't have copper. We didn't have wire. We didn't have the technology. We didn't have the tadpoles. We were throwing wrenches or weights on there to get down a little deeper the farther that you went. The clarity now, everybody is trying to eliminate more than that. So like ourselves, we used to run 5 downriggers. We're down to 3 because even the wire or the Power Pro or whatever you're using for your downrigger line to be able to cut that line, well, it's still throwing bubbles. When you're going through the water, if you're 150 foot down with 5 cables coming through the water all at once, it looks like a great big screen of bubbles coming at you. You know, it just doesn't look natural. Where in the past, I think before that water was so clean and so clear that they couldn't see it from so far away. And that's why I think a lot of times, especially if we're fishing shallower water, our outside rods are a lot better because those fish are scooting off to the sides as the boat is coming, and then our baits are coming through. You know, I think that, in my opinion, is the biggest thing that has changed. Your water levels fluctuate year to year depending on where it's at. But if those fish are 150 foot down, I don't think they really care if you're, you know, a foot or 3 feet shallower or deeper. I think that it affects the currents. I really do. Anytime that you have a break, anytime that you have a shoreline, anytime that you have anything, obviously that mass or that energy has to be reflected off of that. So it's pushing water back, and you know, the amount of force that water has is uncanny to nothing. There is no greater force in this nation when it reflects upon that currents. But I think that you guys helped eliminate a lot of that to help figure that out. I think that those are some of the biggest things I would have to say. You know, zebra mussels, quagga mussels, but they've been around forever. Bait fish, you know, because of the lack of, we have less plankton, so we have less plant growth and everything else, which the plankton, which then the alewives and the smelt and all that stuff. So our bait fish, you find a school of bait fish, the anite school of bait fish, because the predator fish are going to find it eventually.
All right, Pat, really appreciate again you coming on and spending the time with us. Is there something that you wanted to talk about today that I didn't ask you about?
Not really. I mean, they could certainly go to Pat Kalmerton Outdoors on Facebook, and they can follow that. They can go to Wolfpack Adventures on Facebook. They can go to our website, see fish reports, pick up the phone, call us. You know, we're not too proud and, you know, too strong to tell you what's going on. We understand. We're all dads and brothers and mothers and everything else that, you know, if you have time to go out and you have the means to do it on your own, we'll be happy to help you out any which way that we can. If you have questions on the fish hawk that come up, either the X4, the X4D, the X2, whatever the case may be, we use them all. So it's one of them where if you have questions, by all means, we're here as another source for you to help put more fish in the boat.
Well, again, Pat, thanks so much for coming on. If you want to find out more about Pat, he told you where to find him on Facebook. The website is wolfpackadventures.com. And again, thanks so much for coming on and spending some time with us and sharing your knowledge with the audience. It's really valuable to talk to somebody like you who's been around for a while. Don't want to make you sound like an old guy, but it's good to have you on and to share your knowledge with the audience.
Yeah, go to Pat Kalmerton Outdoors. You know, like and follow that, because we're gonna have a lot of videos yourself. We're talking about going back and forth, and things are just gonna be posted there as well.
Awesome. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, Chris.